All right, good everyone, and welcome to this presentation. My name is Tony Obijuru, and I'm a PhD student at Carolina University. Today, I'll be making a presentation about non-state actors in global economic policy. Now, this presentation will explore the roles, effectiveness, and policy implications of NSAs with a case study of the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, during the COVID-19 pandemic. But first, I would like to ask, why do you think this topic is important? You'll all agree with me that in today's interconnected world, the forces shaping global economic policy extend well beyond the realm of sovereign state. What I mean is that non-state actors have emerged as powerful influencers in economic decision-making, in crisis response, and in policy design. Therefore, understanding their impact is crucial for navigating modern economic challenges. Now, in this presentation, we will explore the significant role of non-state actors in shaping global economic policy. We will discuss their relevance, various roles, case studies, and the impact they have on global stability and policy recommendations. This session sets the stage for the discussion on non-state actors in global economic policy, emphasizing their growing importance in an interconnected world. We will begin with defining key terms. Next, we will explore the various roles of non-state actors, followed by a case study analysis. We will assess the impact of these actors and conclude with policy recommendation and a summary of key points. Now let's break the ice. Now, can you name any organization or movement that is not government, but still influences global economic decisions? Now, if you mentioned the International Monetary Fund or WEF, you are absolutely correct. And this leads us to definition of key terms. To effectively discuss this topic, we need to define key terms such as non-state actors and global economic policy. Now, for non-state actors, Belal 2020 defines non-state actors as entities that participate in international relations and economic governance without being affiliated to any particular government. These includes international organizations, non-government organizations, transnational corporations, and social movements. Now, for global economic policies, Farrell and Newman 2019 defines it as a set of rules, regulations, and strategic plans adopted at international levels to manage trade, to manage finance, investment, and development. In this section, we will explore the various roles that non-state actors play in shaping global economic policies and the influence they hold over international affairs. All right, international organizations like the IMF, World Bank, and WTO play crucial roles in global economic governance, providing financial assistance, policy advice, and facilitating international trade. The IMF provides financial assistance and policy advice to countries facing economic instability, thereby promoting global economic stability. An example is the Eurozone debt crisis in Greece. Now, Greece experienced a severe financial crisis that began in 2009, leading to an unprecedented economic recession. The country's debt levels were unsustainable and it faced the threat of default. In response, the IMF, along with the European Central Bank and the European Commission, collectively known as the Troika, stepped in to provide a series of financial assistance packages. Specifically, the IMF approved a 3-year standby arrangement for Greece, amounting to approximately 30 billion euros in May 2010. This initial package aimed to stabilize the Greek economy by implementing fiscal consolidation measures, structural reforms, and efforts to restore competitiveness. With regards to policy advice, the IMF policy advice focused on enhancing fiscal discipline, improving tax collection, and implementing labor market reforms. These measures were designed to reduce the budget deficit, increase revenue, and promote economic growth. The IMF also emphasized the importance of privatization and pension reforms to ensure long-term sustainability. Now, for the World Bank focuses on reducing poverty and supporting development projects through financial and technical assistance. For example, in Bangladesh, the World Bank has financed several initiatives to improve access to clean water and sanitation facilities. One such project, the Bangladesh Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Project, aims to provide safe drinking water to rural communities. By constructing tube wells and economic sanitation facilities, the project has helped reduce waterborne diseases and improve public health. Also, the Agricultural Growth Program in Ethiopia, backed by the World Bank financing, seeks to boost agricultural productivity and enhance food security. Through investment in irrigation systems, training for farmers, and the introduction of resilient crop varieties, the program has significantly improved the livelihoods of many Ethiopian farmers. For the WTO facilitates international trade by providing a framework of trade agreements and resolving trade disputes. One of the core principles of the WTO is non-discrimination, which is embodied in the most favored nation principle and the nation treatment principle. The MFN principle ensures that any trade advantage or concession granted by one member country to another must be extended to all other WTO members. This principle promotes equality and prevents discriminatory practices in international trade. For example, under the MFN principle, if country A reduces tariffs on goods imported from country B, it must apply the same tariff reduction to goods imported from all other WTO member countries. This ensures that no country is given preferential treatment over others. Reciprocity is another fundamental principle of the WTO, which encourages member countries to provide mutual concessions in trade negotiations. This principle ensures that trade liberalization efforts are balanced and that countries receive fair benefits from trade agreements. For example, in the Doha Development Roundtable of Trade Negotiations, member countries engage in reciprocal negotiations to reduce tariffs and other trade barriers. Developed countries offered to reduce agricultural subsidies, while developing countries agreed to lower tariffs on industrial goods. Now, other key principles include transparency and the promotion of fair competition. NGOs play a vital role in advocating social justice issues, promoting equality and human rights across different communities. Examples, Oxfam, Amnesty International. Now, Oxfam is a well-known NGO that focuses on tackling poverty and inequality. Through its campaigns and initiatives, Oxfam highlights the disproportionate impact of economic policies on poor and marginalized communities. Oxfam's Even It Up campaign, for example, calls for fair taxation, better public services, and decent work conditions to reduce poverty and inequality globally. Amnesty International is another NGO that advocates for social justice, particularly in the context of human rights. The organization's campaigns against forced evictions, discrimination, and economic exploitation emphasize the need for economic policies that protect and empower vulnerable populations. One concrete example of NGOs' contributions to economic policy can be seen through various campaigns and initiatives around the world. Médecins Sans Frontières, otherwise known as Doctors Without Borders, has been a vocal advocate for affordable access to medicines. Through its access campaigns, MSF challenges international trade agreements and pharmaceutical monopoly practices that restrict access to life-saving medicines in low and middle-income countries. By advocating for policy changes, MSF helps ensure that economic policies do not hinder access to essential health care. Non-governmental organizations actively promote economic sustainability, working towards effective policies to protect the planet. An example is the World Wildlife Fund, that's WWF, and Friends of the Earth. The WWF is one of the world's leading conservation organizations, which works in nearly 100 countries and is supported by over 5 million members globally. Their work include preserving endangered species, conserving natural habitats, and advocating for the reduction of carbon emissions to combat climate change. Now, for Friends of the Earth, oh, I like this name by the way, is an international network of environmental organizations in about 74 countries. Their mission is to create a healthy and just world by protecting the rights of the people and the environment. They tackle issues such as biodiversity, deforestation, climate change, and pollution through grassroots campaigns, through legal actions, and of course, through educational initiatives. Now, these NGOs are just a few examples of organizations dedicated to promoting environmental sustainability. Through grassroots mobilization, NGOs influence policy decisions by empowering local communities to voice their needs and concerns. One notable example of how NGOs have successfully influenced policy through grassroots mobilization is the Green Belt movement in Kenya. The Green Belt movement, otherwise known as the GBM, is a grassroots NGO that focuses on environmental conservation and women's rights. Through the mobilization of local communities, particularly women, GBM has planted over 51 million trees across Kenya. This massive reforestation effort has not only helped combat deforestation and climate change, but also influenced national policies on environmental conservation. The organization's persistent advocacy led to the inclusion of environmental considerations in Kenya's national development agenda and the recognition of the importance of community involvement in sustainable development. Transnational social movements are powerful catalysts for change, mobilizing resources, ideas, and people across national boundaries to tackle global issues such as climate change and inequality. These movements play an essential role in pressuring governments and organizations to adopt more equitable policies. An example is the environmental movement Fridays for Future. Now, Fridays for Future, initiated by Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg in 2018, has become a global phenomenon. The movement began as a solitary protest outside the Swedish parliament and rapidly grew into a worldwide call to action. Young people around the globe participate in climate strikes every Friday, demanding that political leaders take decisive action to combat climate change. This movement has significantly influenced the global climate discourse and inspired millions to advocate for environmental justice. Now, in summary, these international organizations, that's the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO, the non-governmental organizations, and transnational social movements demonstrate the power of collective action in addressing some of the most pressing issues of our time. Now, this section will present a detailed analysis of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and their roles during the COVID-19 global crisis, providing insights into their effectiveness and influence. But first, we will have an overview of the pandemic's economic impact. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered the deepest global recession since the Great Depression. Lockdowns and restrictions led to a significant decline in economic activity, causing GDP contractions across the world. Developing countries encountered numerous challenges during the pandemic, including limited healthcare resources, inadequate social safety nets, and the disruption in supply chains. These challenges heightened the need for international support. In response to the crisis, the IMF rolled out various financial assistance measures aimed at helping countries stabilize their economies and support their populations during the pandemic. The IMF's response included providing emergency financial support, technical assistance, and policy advice to help member countries navigate the economic fallout from COVID-19. Specifically, the IMF allocated $250 billion in special drawing rights to more than 80 countries to boost global liquidity and support member countries in their economic recovery efforts, particularly those with limited access to financial markets. Many developing countries received financial assistance from the IMF, including those in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Now, this support was crucial in helping them mitigate the economic impacts of the pandemic. Another role the IMF played was the introduction of the COVID-19 Rapid Financing Instrument, that's the RFI. The RFI was introduced to provide quick financial support to countries facing urgent balance of payments needs due to the pandemic. This instrument enabled countries to access funds without the usual conditions attached. Also, the CCRT was activated to provide debt service relief to the poorest countries, allowing them to redirect resources towards essential health expenditures and economic recovery efforts during the pandemic. The effectiveness of the IMF's response can be assessed by analyzing aid allocation and its implications for macroeconomic stability. Now, this analysis aids in understanding the broader impact of IMF's interventions. Now, one of the key objectives of the IMF's response was to promote macroeconomic stability in developing countries. The institution emphasized the importance of sound fiscal and monetary policies to foster recovery. Also, to expedite the disbursement of funds, the IMF relaxed conditionalities associated with its financial assistance programs. This flexibility allowed countries to access vital resources more swiftly. In this section, we will evaluate the successes and failures of the actions taken by the non-state actors, that's the IMF, and their broader implication for global economic stability. Successes. The rapid mobilization of resources was a notable success. International organizations quickly provided essential supplies to areas most affected. For example, the World Health Organization (WHO) coordinated efforts to deliver PPE, ventilators, and testing kits, focused on inclusive recovery. Governments prioritize health initiatives and social spending, ensuring vulnerable populations received support. Temporary debt relief. Temporary debt relief allowed countries to reallocate resources. The G20's DSSI provided critical relief to low-income countries, enabling them to invest in healthcare and social services rather than debt repayments. For criticisms and failures, according to McKibben and Vines 2020, funding distribution favored middle-income nations over low-income ones. They further argued that financial aid was not equitably allocated, with wealthier nations receiving disproportionate support. Short-term relief measures often fail to address underlying structural issues, leaving countries vulnerable to future crises. Lack of investment in long-term healthcare infrastructure meant countries remained susceptible to subsequent waves of infection. Limited oversight on fund usage. Limited oversight on how funds were used led to insufficient tracking and accountability. In some cases, funds were mismanaged or simply diverted. Now, what are the implications? The pandemic reinforced the importance of multilateral institutions, but highlighted gaps in equitable support and accountability mechanisms. Enhanced cooperation among international bodies could promote fairer distribution of resources and integrate transparent monitoring systems to ensure aid reaches its intended beneficiaries. The pandemic also emphasized the critical role of health infrastructure and social services in building long-term resilience. Investment in healthcare systems, education, and social safety nets are essential to prepare for future crises. In summary, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of global response mechanisms. Therefore, addressing these gaps and building robust, equitable, and accountable systems is essential to better manage future global crises. Now, this section will outline key policy recommendations aimed at enhancing the effectiveness of non-state actors in global economic governance. So, what is our policy proposal? It's pretty simple. Strengthen the IMF's coordination with NGOs and civil society organizations, that's CSOs, to enhance transparency, inclusiveness, and local impact in future crises. Justification for our proposal with evidence and examples. Number one, NGOs' ground level insights enhance program relevance. NGOs and CSOs often operate directly within local communities, making them well positioned to understand specific socio-economic challenges. For example, during the Ebola outbreak in West Africa between 2014 and 2016, partnership with organizations like Medicines Sans Frontières and local CSOs enabled faster responses and more effective communication with affected populations. Their grassroots insights helped identify service delivery gaps that top-down interventions often missed. Two, improved legitimacy and monitoring. Evidence from the IMF's COVID-19 emergency lending shows that weak oversight in some countries led to fund misuse. In Ecuador and Nigeria, for instance, civil society actors flagged non-transparent procurement processes and called for more accountability. Therefore, establishing structured consultation mechanisms would enable CSOs to participate in oversight, increasing pressure for transparent governance. Three, inclusive development increases public trust and compliance. Countries that involved CSOs in economic planning and crisis response, such as Ghana during the post-HIPC recovery, witnessed higher social acceptance of reforms and better policy outcomes. The IMF's Independent Evaluation Office report emphasized that engagement with local stakeholders improves program design and sustainability. Four, formalized collaboration ensures consistency. While the IMF has consulted CSOs informally, formal advisory panels, like those used by the World Bank, could ensure regular, structured dialogue. These panels could give implementation phases and flag potential challenges early, therefore enhancing fund efficacy. Now, in summary, strengthen IMF CSO coordination through formal advisory roles, mandatory consultations, and increased transparency can bridge the gap between macroeconomic planning and community level needs. This inclusive approach enhances the legitimacy, effectiveness, and sustainability of crisis response. In conclusion, we will summarize the key points discussed throughout the presentation, emphasizing the vital role of non-state actors in shaping global economic policies and the need for effective strategies during crisis. The NSAs, especially institutions like the IMF, play a vital role in shaping and implementing global economic policies. Their influence can be both stabilizing and contentious, depending on transparency, equity, and inclusiveness. Finally, effective crisis management and sustainable policy outcomes require deeper collaboration between NSAs and local actors. Now, before I go, I would like to pose a question. This is basically to aid further engagement. Now, having listened to my presentation and based on your experience, both professional and personal, what lessons can we learn from the IMF's COVID-19 response to better prepare for future global disruptions? I'd really love to hear from you. All right, at this point, I'd like to say a very big thank you for your attention and participation. I appreciate your time and your interest in the presentation. If you have any questions or you need further information, please feel free to reach out, feel free to ask. I hope you did find this presentation very valuable and insightful. Thank you very much once again, and do have yourselves a very pleasant day. Bye-bye.